Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on German football. This video is about the tour I took of Borussia Dortmund's Westfalenstadion back in November 2019, so this was before the pandemic. The stadium was built for the 1974 World Cup and it replaced the Westfalenstadion, which is the Red Earth Stadium, which is next door to the Westfalenstadion. You can see it when you visit the stadium. There's two stadiums right next door to each other. Over the years, its capacity has increased and now it holds just over 81,000. Compare that to around about 50,000 in the 1996-1997 season when Borussia Dortmund won the Champions League. The Westfalenstadion has the largest single-tier all-standing stand in the world. It has the largest all-terrace stand in the world, and that is 25,000 just in one stand, and that is in the south stand behind one of the goals. So to put that into perspective, that stand alone in all standing mode holds more than both Hibs and Hearts stadium. So Tynecastle and Easter Road hold 20,000, that stand alone holds 25,000, to put that into perspective. So the stadium really is as big as it looks on TV. In all-seater mode it holds just over 65,000, so still a big stadium but doesn't hold quite as much as it does when the terraces are open for the Bundesliga games. So in the Champions League and Europa League it holds about 65,000 as it does when the German national team play there. But in the Bundesliga and Deutsche Pokal games it holds 81,000 or just under that. Around about 81,000, not quite sure that's just below or just above 81,000, but still makes it the biggest stadium in Germany by domestic capacity. The biggest stadium in Germany in all-seater mode is the Olympiastadion in Berlin, which is where the DFB Cup finals play. It's where the DFB Cup finals are played, and that could be a stadium I visit when I next go to Germany. So if I do go back to Berlin, I went to Berlin once but didn't get round to seeing that stadium. So when I go back to Germany and when I go back to Berlin, I'll make a video on the Olympiastadion tour. That stadium has a lot of history to it. It is of course where Zinedine Zidane headbutted Marco Materazzi in the World Cup final in 2006. This stadium, the Westfalenstadion, has a lot of history as well, despite being a much newer stadium. It played host to a few games in the 1974 World Cup, so it hosted, I think it's 4 games in that tournament, and it also hosted a few games in the 2006 World Cup. It is where the Brazilian Ronaldo broke the World Cup scoring record when he scored against Ghana. Brazil played a few of their games in the stadium. It is of course where Italy famously beat Germany 2-0 in the semi-final with the Grosso and Del Piero goals. It also hosted the 2001 UEFA Cup final between Liverpool and Deportivo Alaves. If you don't know what happened in that game, it is one of the best UEFA Cup finals or cup finals of any kind. But I'm not going to spoil who won that game, so if you can find that on YouTube and watch it, it is one of the best matches I've ever seen. Deportivo Alaves done remarkably well to get to that final, and I'm not going to give away whether Alaves did beat Liverpool or not, but it was a very close game and it did go to extra time. So, along with the biggest stand in the world, the Westfalenstadion has the longest, narrowest and darkest tunnel, if not in the world. I'm not sure whether it's in the world, but it's certainly the longest and darkest and narrowest tunnel in Europe. And Jurgen Klopp once said it's like being born again when you go out of it. If you go along dark tunnel, then you see a whole big bit of light and wall of noise hitting you as you come out. It's a stadium designed specifically to have a great atmosphere. If you're like me and you've been on a tour of Wembley, but in the tour of Wembley they say for you to shout, "Hello Wembley!" and it echoes around. So Wembley is designed specifically for acoustics that create a big echo. It is the same with this stadium. So like with Wembley, this stadium is designed specifically to have the noise bounce off the roof and go back down onto you. And if you have a good look at the roof of the stadium, it is tilted down, slightly downwards to design the sound to echo off and back down onto the pitch. So the stands are really steep. The roof is designed to echo the sound back down. So it is probably one of the loudest stadiums in Europe. So just like Wembley, it's designed to have a lot of noise in the stadium. But it's not as fancy as Wembley. Wembley is designed specifically as a big event stadium. This stadium, the Westfalenstadion, is designed specifically for football. And in the changing rooms, as you can see from my pictures, they're not as luxurious as the ones at Wembley or most English stadiums. They're pretty basic, and both dressing rooms are pretty much the same, except for one difference until recently, until a certain Portuguese footballer complained about it. When Cristiano Ronaldo was playing for Real Madrid in the Champions League, and I think this was the game where Robert Lewandowski scored 4 goals and Borussia Dortmund won 4-1. So he wasn't happy for 2 reasons. He wasn't happy about the result, and I find this rather funny actually. Cristiano Ronaldo complained there wasn't enough hairdryers in the away dressing room. So pretty much both the home and away dressing room are very similar. The main difference is that the Borussia Dortmund players have their own sitting place and pegs, or the away dressing room, as different footballers from different teams use it, don't have that. So the dressing rooms aren't that luxurious anyway, and they certainly were not up to Cristiano Ronaldo's taste. Another incident which happened, it was when Juventus were playing Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League. So this game went the way of the visitors, but Juventus won 3-0. Gianluigi Buffon, apparently, he drank quite a lot of caffeine before the game, and after the game he was selected for a drugs test. So Gianluigi Buffon was selected for a drugs test after the game, and they test players randomly. They're all picked before the match. The names are in a closely guarded, secretive... The players' names are written down, and no one's to know who they are until they're picked. And in this case, Gianluigi Buffon was one of the players, and they usually take urine samples off of them. But because he drank a lot of caffeine before the game, I think it was caffeine, don't quote me on it, but it was something which he was allowed to drink, so it wasn't a banned substance. When they tested him, he was cleared, so he wasn't found guilty of anything, just to clarify that. But it took them time to get some urine from him. So by the time he had passed his test, his drugs test, all his teammates had gone, and he had to be escorted to the airport to fly back to Turin and join his teammates. So unfortunately his Juventus teammates on that occasion left him behind. Don't know why they'd done that. They must have known they were missing their captain. He was a key and important player. He's the captain of Juventus, so I don't know how they could have forgotten about him of all players. Juventus went to the final but lost to the aforementioned Ronaldo's Real Madrid in the final in Cardiff in that game. So those are some stories my tour guide told me about Cristiano Ronaldo and the hairdryer, or lack thereof them, and Gianluigi Buffon and his drugs test, which took longer than expected. In the stadium, they are pretty well prepared for fans who are not that well behaved. I've not seen this in British stadiums, but in this stadium they have some prisons, as you probably saw from the pictures. So that's what those rooms with bars are. They are rooms to put troublemaking fans so that they don't spoil the atmosphere for the majority. They've got 2 cells, one for the home fans and one for the away fans, because putting both of them in the same cell is just asking for trouble. And surprisingly, as you'd expect, so surprisingly and also not so surprisingly, they are normally busier than usual when Dortmund play Schalke and Bayern Munich. Probably more so Schalke. The rivalry of Schalke is more intense than Bayern Munich that I know of. But their busiest day was in a Champions League game when Galatasaray came to visit the Westfalenstadion. You probably saw some clips of it or remember watching that game if you're a follower of German football or the Champions League in general. In that game, some of Galatasaray's not so well behaved fan base decided to throw flares on the pitch, and unfortunately and pretty shockingly at the Borussia Dortmund fans. and that's not what you want to have thrown your way when you're at a football match. Those things are pretty dangerous. So unsurprisingly, a lot of the culprits found themselves in the away prison cell. So Borussia Dortmund's Westfalenstadion will host games in Euro 2024, and hopefully the stadium prisons will not be full during that time, or not need to be full. So they'll host a few games Euro 2024. The number of games and who's playing who has not been decided yet, as it's quite a few years away. So hopefully Germany will make up for their disappointing loss to England in this year's Euros and win the Euros on home soil in 2024 under Hansi Flick. I'm sure the German team will be back to their winning ways under him. He done a great job as Bayern Munich manager, and Germany will be back as a major force in European and world football under Hansi Flick. And I'm sure two things will happen in Euro 2024. Either Germany will win, or secondly, Germany will not win, but they'll reach the semi-finals or better. So hope you enjoyed this video, and I highly recommend a visit to Dortmund, where you can visit the German Football Museum, which I'll link in this video, my previous video, and the Westfalenstadion, the home of the mighty Borussia Dortmund.